Hi all, welcome to Cyber Warfare Labs AWS Cloud Red Team course. In this module, we will discuss about how we can exploit EC2 instance or how we can take advantage of EC2 instance services to get initial access. So basically, EC2 instance provide platform as a services where it's just like work as a virtual machines. So how a red teamer or an attacker perspective, how we can get an initial access. So there is a different way we can get the initial access. Just like if there is a EC2 instance which is running a applications and we found RC or SSRF type of vulnerability there, you can get the initial access through that one. There is other method also. Suppose if you found a SSH key and or credentials, you can get the initial access to that one. Third one is, suppose if you found valid credential of a console using SSM, you can get the initial access. So there is a different way you can get the initial access on the EC2 instance. In this module, we will discuss about, suppose there is one EC2 instance. You can see here in this diagram there is one EC2 instance. So this is a EC2 instance which is hosting a web application. So when a web application is running on EC2 instance, and if a attacker which is using a web client or any proxy tools and found that there is a RC or SSRF vulnerabilities there, so they can exploit these vulnerability to get the initial access. So you can see here, we'll demonstrate here how they get the initial access. So once they have the initial access on those instances, they can perform all the, all the attack, or we can say they compromise the full virtual machines. So they can do whatever they want to do. And second thing is there is a metadata services which is provided by AWS, which is contain a lot of sensitive information regarding the this instance. So they can also exfiltrate those credentials, temporary credential, and can access those roles or rights to perform further activities in AWS environment. So let's check how it's happened. So let's close this one. Okay, you can see here there is one. I'm just copying. This is the EC2 instance which is hosting a web applications, and somehow attacker found that this is vulnerable to remote code execution. So let's copy this one. Yeah, you can see here this application is, there is one parameter which is vulnerable to remote code execution. There is a different way you can find out. This comes in the web application security testing. In this case, we are discussing about if they compromise the instance, what other information or what other activity they can do. So you can see here, so this attacker found that this application is vulnerable to remote code execution. So they can use the metadata services. They can get the initial access through a remote code execution. They can take a reverse shell or bind shell, or they can directly execute any command whichever they want to do. Apart from this command execution, what else they can do? Suppose they found a SSRF, so they can use the metadata endpoints to exfiltrate the sensitive information. So let's check here. So we found that attacker already compromised the EC2 instance. How they get the initial access? They got the initial access through either RC. If they've got the initial access through RC, they have to directly execute the commands. They have right to execute the command. That means they get the initial access through RC, and that's all. But what about if they found SSRF, which is really critical now these days? How they can compromise it? So you can see here in this scenario, so there is a two type of metadata is there. One is instant metadata version 1 and version 2. In version 1, they simply directly they have to use these options. They have to just use these options. Either if they have a RCE, they can use this curl command to hit this endpoint on the instance level. So that means instance have to send the request on the behalf of the instance which is running there. And other case, if you have found SSRF, you have to specify this instance ID what happened in SSRF instance or EC2 instance sends the request to this particular endpoint using or the taking the advantage of source IP of the AWS infrastructures. You can see here, suppose if we have a RC, I'm just copying this one, paste it here. You can see here all the information I can get it here. So that will contain the AMI's informations, manifest, block device mapping, public key as well, and you can see here there is instance action, and this is really important about identity credentials. So just copy this one. So just copy this one. You can see here the access key ID, secrets, as well as all the information, tokens information is also here. So this is how you can, suppose if you are RC, you can directly execute the command. You already have the initial access to executing the command, to exploiting the RC. If you have a SSRF, you can specify in the where the instance or the application sending the request on behalf of the users. So you can see here, if application itself the send the request, that means request is originating from the EC2 instance itself. That means the source IP which is sending the request is use EC2 instance itself, and to this endpoint there is no authentications. So this is really you can exfiltrate the sensitive informations from there. Same thing, just like recently what AWS did, they introduced the metadata version 2. So that means you have to specify one header. This header, AWS EC2 metadata token TLS second. This is the first header, and second header they have to specify this metadata, this one. So there is two header they have to specify it. This is the important header they have to specify. In this header they have to specify the token, where they get the token. So they have to send the put request to this particular endpoint. So they get the token, and then after they can send this get request directly to this endpoint. So if they have to have this header, they will get the metadata, otherwise they won't get. So this is a one layer of protections to SSRF type of vulnerability. But if there is already have a RC, they can they can execute this command itself. So this is how you can get the initial access on EC2 instance. So there is apart from metadata, there is user data is also there. So user data, that means the data, just like we saw in our enumeration phase, that how a developer or organizations can put their codes in the instance itself, or the whatever command they want to execute when instance is run. So those kind of data you can also exfiltrate. So there's the difference between the metadata you can you can get from this metadata, so, this particular directory, and user data you can get this particular directory. So this is how you can see here how this attacker can get the initial access. So there is two ways. One is RCE and second is the SSRF. In SSRF you have to understand about if what are the versions in IAM instant metadata they enable. So there may be a chance that when you are running the instance, you can disable the instant metadata version 1. If they disable it, and if there is a SSRF, you have to have this header. Otherwise, the default cases is both the version 1 and version 2 is by default enables. So that means there is a high risk that you no need to add this header, or you can directly send this request from the instance to this endpoint, and you can exfiltrate the credentials and all other informations without having any other access. And this is really important, because now these days what is happening, a lot of organizations have their data or their application on the EC2 instance, And if the attackers compromise the EC2 instance, there is a lot more chance that they can, perform the further red teaming activities, inside that environment. So red team perspective to getting the initial access EC2 instance is really important, and to understand about if you have a RC or SSRF, how you can exploit it, what type of metadata version they enabled, and how you can exfiltrate the more information. So this is how you can get the information from there. So that's all for this video. Thank you so much for joining this video. Thank you so much for watching this video. Thank you.